o'clock. I am Mark Roach, presiding officer for the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, Electrical Safety and Licensing Advisory Board. I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, Electrical Safety and Licensing Advisory Board, Monday, June the 26th, 2023. And I'm going to ask Anna if you'll call the roll.
Yes, sir. Stacy Mighty, Marcus Lundergreen,
Present.
John Sparrow,
Present.
Troy Webb,
Present.
Christopher Bass,
Present.
Mark Matheny,
Here.
Lydell Toy,
I am Mark Roach.
Present.
Kim Allen, and presiding officer Mark Roach.
Present.
You have a quorum, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. Moving on to item C. Doug Jennings, General Counsel. Do we have anything training wise? Doug, where'd he go on my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Chairman Roach. We have the open government training, which I will start presenting in just a moment. Again, my name is Doug Jennings, Assistant General Counsel for the department. Let me go ahead and get the PowerPoint shared. And there we go. Can y'all see that clearly?
I can.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. It's good to see y'all again. And thanks for being here this afternoon. We're going to run through the open government training today, which is going to cover the Open Meetings Act, the Administrative Procedure Act, and the Public Information Act. Some of this may sound really familiar. That's because we give this fairly often, but it's always good to have a refresher. Because I really can't see who's raising their hands. If there's a question at any point, just feel free to just pop in with your question. I'm happy to answer it. We'll start off with an overview of the Open Meetings Act. The purpose of the Open Meetings Act is to ensure open and transparent government, and that act requires meetings of governmental bodies, such as the Advisory Board, to be open to the public and for that meeting to be preceded by public notice of the time, place, and subject matter of the meeting. We're going to cover some key terms for the Open Meetings Act. The first key term to know is quorum, and a quorum is simply a majority of the members of the advisory board as fixed by rule or statute. The statute for your advisory board gives it 9 members, and therefore the simple majority is 5. A quorum constitutes at least 5 members for this board, and a quorum must be present in order to take official action. Deliberation is simply a synonym for discussion, and that means a verbal or written exchange involving a quorum of a governmental body concerning an issue within the jurisdiction of the governmental body. And so for purposes of Open Meetings Act, talking about Chairman Roach's post-meeting party is not deliberation. Talking about the update to the NEC is deliberation. And a meeting, this is perhaps the most important definition for the Open Meetings Act. A meeting occurs anytime a quorum of a governmental body engages in deliberation over which the governmental body has supervision or control, or anytime the body takes formal action. So again, I just want to stress that any time a quorum of the governmental body meets and talks about board business, that is a meeting. And the Act requires advance written notice of the date, time, place, and subject of each meeting held. TDLR, of course, provides this notice in the form of an agenda, which is distributed to the members, also available to the public. Just a note, we do have to file that agenda with the Secretary of State at least 7 days before a meeting. Now, keeping in mind that I have said that a meeting can take place anytime, anywhere a quorum engages in deliberation about public business, a question arises whether members ever can meet in an informal setting without violating the Open Meetings Act. We often see a quorum of members that might be invited to a social function, a convention, or a workshop. And if you find yourself in this position, yes, you absolutely may attend, even a quorum may attend. However, the gathering will be subject to the Open Meetings Act if a quorum of members is present and the members either engage in a discussion about board or committee business or take formal action. So whenever you find yourself in a setting where there is a quorum of members of this advisory board, make sure not to talk about board business. Otherwise, you are in violation of the Open Meetings Act. Some key points to remember. the big take home for this is always be aware of any situation occurring outside a meeting in which a quorum of members is present. Don't engage in discussions related to board business when a quorum is present and you're outside of an officially noticed meeting. And keep in mind that violations can happen on social media. And also, we will cover one more point, and that's beware the walking quorum. A walking quorum occurs when fewer than a quorum of members engage in discussion about official business and then communicate those discussions to other members. It's very simple. So I've got a good example here. We have a 5-member advisory board. 2 members exchange phone calls and emails expressing their thoughts on an upcoming rule change. Perfectly fine. 2 members, the quorum in this advisory board will be 3. 2 members are free to exchange their thoughts with each other. The issue arises when one of those board members forwards the email exchange to another member. In some sense, you can view this as the second member contaminated the proceedings that by forwarding those emails on to that third member. So now we have an instance in which a quorum has been engaged in public business, and that is a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So here are some good practices to avoid quorum issues. Once again, don't meet in small groups to discuss board or committee business and then forward those discussions to other members. Don't send emails or text messages to a quorum of members, even if you're addressing each email or text message individually. And don't create posts on social media about board business where there's a likelihood that a quorum of members will participate in those discussions. Also, we just have some guidelines for open sessions. Open session is just a term for a meeting like we're having today. A board or committee is limited to discussing the specific items on the agenda. Of course, we have a public comment period during which members of the public are given an opportunity to speak. The presiding officer is free to set reasonable limits on those commenters. Typically, we see 2 or 3 minutes being granted to a speaker. And it's important to notice that when a member of the public who is making a public comment raises an issue or discusses an issue that isn't on the agenda, the board is really limited in its ability to interact with that person because that item may not be on the agenda. And when that happens, the best remedy for that is placing that subject on an agenda for a future meeting. Here's the bad news. There are a couple of points I want to mention for violations of the Open Meetings Act. So any interested person, and that includes the media, can petition the courts to stop and potentially overturn actions taken in violation of the Open Meetings Act. And there are criminal penalties. The penalties for knowingly violating the Open Meetings Act are a fine of $100 to $500, confinement in county jail for 1 to 6 months, or both. You want to avoid that. And if there are any questions, to help us all avoid civil penalties, having rules overturned, going to jail and whatnot, all you have to do is send us an email with a question. We're happy to answer it. You can always send your email to Anna or to me or to Mary or all 3, and we'll get back with you and make sure that that you're not violating the Open Meetings Act, and we'll take good care of you. We will move on to the Administrative Procedure Act, which we call the APA around here most of the time. The purpose of the Texas Administrative Procedure Act, also known as Chapter 2001 of the Texas Government Code, is to establish minimum standards of uniform practice and procedure for agencies, to provide for public participation during the rulemaking process, and to govern the contested case process. A rule, as you're very well aware, is a statement made by a state agency that implements, interprets, or prescribes law or policy, or describes the procedure or practice requirements of a state agency. I like to say that rules are, they translate the various program statutes and add requirements. Oftentimes when the legislature passes a bill that creates a program, they'll put all of the, for example, the qualifications for a license. They'll put all of the kind of key points in the statute and then delegate it to the agency to fill in the rest of the details, and that's typically what rules do. There are a lot of sources for rulemaking. This is not an exhaustive list. Legislative changes often require rulemaking. Advisory board work groups can come up with ideas for rulemaking. Same with open discussion in an advisory board meeting. TDLR staff often come up with ideas for rulemaking. And then there are a couple of other procedures. The 4-year rule review is a process that we undergo, as you might guess, every 4 years to review the rules to make sure they are still necessary. And a rule petition is a mechanism through which a member of the public can request the agency engage in rulemaking. You have seen this chart many times before. I like to say today we're in the second blue bubble. So you'll see that when starting in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see there is an idea for a rule. Ultimately, that rule is drafted. You will see this advisory board will see a rule twice in the rulemaking process. At your previous meeting, you were in the first blue bubble where you considered the draft rule regarding the 2023 NEC. You recommended that that rule be published with the Texas Register, which it was. The public then had 30 days to comment on those proposed rules. GC, we then went and reviewed the comments and distributed them to you. So now we are in the second blue bubble today when we get to that rulemaking item, where you will be reviewing the comments and making your recommendation to the commission about whether the agency should in fact adopt the rule as it was published. Our commission will then review the rule filing, the comments received, and then vote whether to adopt the rule. And then there is some paperwork at the end that is required where the rule would have to be filed with the Texas Register, and then it becomes effective 20 days after that filing. We'll move on lastly to the Public Information Act. You also hear this referred to as the Open Records Act. The big take home here is that all documents, records, and other information relating to official business of the agency are open to the public with some exceptions. So generally that means that your emails, any documents that you share with the agency relating to your participation in the advisory board are open to the public upon request. There are some exceptions. For example, if you send an email to Anna or to Mary saying you can't make the meeting because of a health condition, or if you are for some reason disclose a personal email address or driver's license or social security number or something like that, those things, of course, are going to be exempted from that open records request. Just important to know that no matter what device, whether it's your personal device, a TDLR device, as long as you are communicating with the agency in connection with official board business, those documents, those emails, text messages, and the like are subject to an open records request. So if you receive a public information request or something from a member of the public where they're asking you for disclosure of a document or to share something, please forward that request as soon as possible to me, and I will send it to our open records team. And there's a reason. If we don't respond within 10 days, there are some potential penalties where we might have to disclose a document that would otherwise be exempted. So it's very important. And keep in mind, these are some of the exceptions I mentioned. Personal email addresses, educational documents, health information, things like that. We will redact from those documents, but otherwise they'll have to be shared. And that's the quick and dirty version of the training, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anybody got any questions? All right, then moving on to item E. Thank you, Doug.
you.
Is approval of the minutes. Assuming that everybody's gotten their copy and has had an opportunity to review them. I'll give you a minute or two to refresh if you need to, and then I'll ask Anna to call the vote for approval of the minutes. Any comments or items of discussion from the board? There being none, then I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Christopher Bass, motion to approve.
And a second.
Second. Liddell Toy, I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Anna, if you'll call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Marcus Lundergreen,
Aye.
John Sparrow,
Aye.
Troy Webb,
Aye.
Christopher Bass,
Aye.
Mark Matheny,
Aye.
Lydell Toy,
Aye.
and Presiding Officer Mark Roach.
Aye.
Motion passes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, moving on to item E, public comment. Anna, I believe we don't have any public comment for this meeting.
That's correct, sir.
Thank you very much. With that, then we'll move on to item F, staff reports, and we will start in the licensing division with Yvonne Lopez.
Good afternoon, Presiding Officer and Advisory Board members. Yvonne Lopez, Licensing Manager for this program. You have the statistics before you showing the electricians' overall licensing statistics for FY 2022 and FY 2023 from September of 22 through May of 2023. And if you also see the total number of emails that we received for the occupations that the industrial team oversees and our current projects, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Does any members of the board have any questions? I see that we are up overall, but are we down? I can't move the slide back up to them. Stop right, hold it right there on the electrical contractors overall.
As far as the licensing population,
Yes.
overall, it appears the licensing, the contractor licenses are up collectively. And don't forget that this is just a snapshot through May of 2023. We still have through the end of August.
Okay.
So I foresee those numbers increasing over the next few months, especially with summer. It's already hot. It's been hot. And we're going to start to see a lot of breakdowns. I don't know about y'all's neighborhoods, but we've been getting a lot of power surges in our area. So something to take into consideration. But right, the FY 2022 total is for the entire fiscal year, which is September 1st of 2021 through August 31st of 2022. So we've still got a few more months left in this fiscal year.
Okay. Good to point that out. Thank you.
All right.
Members of the board, any questions?
Looks like a large increase in industrial electricians. Is that right? Between the two?
Correct. So we did notice that trend, and after speaking with regulatory program management, the increase is because of the certification for NCCR no longer being accepted for the oh gosh. Jerry, it was Jerry that I consulted with on this, and he was able to easily identify why that trend occurred, because we did see the double in numbers there, and we were concerned about whether or not that was an error or not, and it was not an error.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. Good eye. Anyone else? All right, Yvonne, thank you very, very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Y'all have a good afternoon.
Okay, moving on to item F2, Education and Examinations Division. And Michael Strawn. You have the
Good
floor.
afternoon, presiding officer and members. My name is Michael Strawn. I'm the manager for our Education Examination Division, here to give you our report today. For our examination statistics, you'll see that overall pass rates remain about the same. And while we are missing the May data from Q3, overall, if you look at our totals, we should be on track to be about the same as we've seen in past fiscal years for this area. Moving down. This is our examination breakout by license types for each of the pass rates, overall pass rates for all the different types that we have here. I will note that we are trying to actually work with our vendor to post additional resources on the website so that you all can see the breakdowns of these pass rates in even greater detail moving forward in the future. So hopefully it'll be something we'll be able to bring to you all. Moving down onto the next area. Continuing education course providers, again, we don't have the May data from Q3, but looking very close to what we've seen in past fiscal years. And then continuing on down, we still notice much of the trends. We have a new program registration for apprentice program, but overall, these numbers are very close to what we've seen prior years. And continuing down further again. This is something I just wanted to make note of. We see the overall pass rates. We know that's always of concern for board members, but I wanted to point out that first-time pass rates, as we see for 7K or 7,000 hours and the 8,000 hours, are significantly higher than our repeat pass rates. So what this is telling us when we're looking at this is that people that are passing, especially on a 7K, it's nearly a 70% pass rate, but those that are failing are doing so repeatedly. And you're seeing the 28% there overall, bringing down pass rates that we see across the board. And then I think moving down to our last area that we have is just CE provider updates. As you see here, we are providing the CE course requirements for electrician courses to require all reference materials to the 2023 NEC code. This goes into effect July 1st and will be required for all course approvals after that date as well. That concludes my report, and I'm open to any questions that you all may have.
All right. Thank you for pointing that out there, Michael. Any questions from the members of the board? All right, Michael, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, moving on to item F3, Customer Service Division. Mary, I understand you're pinch hitting for Patricia.
I am. And I want to say Mary Winston, TDLR, I'm pinch hitting because they are having a hiring bonanza. So the number of interviews that they're doing and the positions that they're filling, meanwhile handling all of the work, she said, "Can you do this?" And I said, "Of course. If there is a question, I can always defer it to you because I won't be able to really answer that. But if the board could just take a look at the trends that they have posted here for our emails and calls, and we can see that we're rather call heavy, but any questions regarding this, please forward them to advisory.boards and we will get it to customer service, and I'll make sure that we can get this answered for you. Pretty consistent, but if you have questions, we'll definitely get those answered.
Looks like it stays pretty busy.
Yeah, very busy.
All right, any questions from the members of the board? Mary, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to item F4, Enforcement Division. Call on Trevor Thielen.
Good morning, Advisory Board. Trevor Thielen here with the Enforcement Division. The statistics that we have for you today are the same as the last meeting, except the fiscal year 2023 portion is updated with 2 additional months of information through April of this year. So I won't go back over everything unless there are specific questions or things that y'all want to look into. But I will note there are some new case highlights at the end, and I looked into these cases, and the top one involving Tony Lalonde, it says in the report and was accurate at the time that he'd been assessed a $5,000 penalty and revocation, and that the case was in collections. Since that time, our general counsel's office has actually made a payment plan with him. He's made a first payment and anticipate to have that paid in full in about 9 months. Are there any questions that I can answer or things that I can help explain?
Members of the board. All right. Okay, Trevor, thank you very, very much, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, with that, we'll move on to item F5, Regulatory Program Management Division. We'll call on Jerry Daniel.
Good morning, board members. Good morning, Chairman Roach. It's been very busy and it's going to get a lot busier and the heat's on. I would like to point out and apologize for the first line of the NFPA Conference Expo and Inspector Board meeting. I was not able to attend that due to not getting a plane flight out after Father's Day. I had to spend that with my family. So that would be a scratch, but I have kept in touch with it. And we've got a lot of exciting things going on, chapters that are going to be built in Texas to help educate the electricians with a partnership through the inspectors section with the National Fire Protection Association. So lots of exciting things happening there. We'll keep you informed with that. On the next one, the NASCLA 2023 National Coordinated Enforcement Effort, the job sweeps we had, very successful. We hit 196 licensees. Out of those, we had 10 of them that were not licensed. We were able to get them in compliance by the following Monday. We do have one case that will end up being filed for a subcontractor running logos as though he was a contractor. So we'll take care of that. We went to the Independent Electrical Contractor Wire Off and Trade Show. Very, very wonderful to see these young men and women coming into the trade and the career. And it's really wonderful to see some of the work they did and watch how they're doing it. Some of these are very, very bright minds coming up in the industry. If you ever get a chance to go to one of these wire off or trade shows, I highly suggest you do and see these young men and women that compete in it. We've had the inspector board meeting prior to the meeting that was in Las Vegas. We got a lot of things done there and made possible for them to get complete while they were there. We are steadily moving forward with the Texas exam. We have now got them all changed over to the 2023 NEC to reference those. We are also in the midst of writing new questions that were turned in, and we'll continue to write that with the next exam cycle coming through, and we will have board member change of those that have applied. What we're going to do this time is, if you remember COVID, we had a board that we picked in 2020, but COVID happened and we had to back up, and we went ahead and used the SMEs that were already in place. So this new board will consist of the SMEs that applied in 20 that did not get their opportunity. If they still wish to, they will. And the board members that we presently have that have worked very hard for the last 2 cycles taking care of it. Other than that, that's all I've got at this time. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer anything I can for you.
All right, Jerry, one of the busiest men in Texas. Board members, any questions?
Yeah, so real quick, where are we on rewriting the industrial electrician test? We're getting away from the CCR, right? We're writing that test?
We have that test already. We've always had that examination. We actually have a board that writes it, and we do add new questions to it. So where we're at is we've had an exam since day one that it went into effect in the law, and we continue to develop that. And we actually have industrial journeymen that sit on that exam board, sir.
Right, but we're not considering the NCCR anymore, right?
No, we have not accepted that as of January 1st.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any
And
other questions, board?
just to kind of, and Jerry, you correct me if I'm wrong, we just kind of bring you up to date on that thing, Troy. I think there was a meeting, there was an effort, which I thought was great to extend an opportunity for discussion out to NCCR. And I think the discovery that they were basically way behind the times. They didn't keep their information up to date, and it was way out of sync with the state. And I think when you guys parted company of that discussion, Jerry, they were going to go back to the drawing board and see what they wanted to do on their end. And I guess I assume we've not heard anything from them since.
I can hop in, Mr. Roach, if you just to clear up. We after several meetings with NCCER, we communicated to them that we're going to move forward administering only TDLR created exams. So we will not be accepting any third-party exams for within the electrical program.
That help you, Troy?
So Doug, that's officially killed off. I remember all that. I just didn't know if they were still working up trying to get compliance, or that's just totally a done deal.
It is for now. Yes, we can characterize it as dead. You know, we may take another look at it at third-party examinations in the future, but for now, we've expended a lot of resources developing our journeyman industrial electrician exam and find it to be a quality product, and we find it superior to other offerings in the market.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
The bottom line, board, we're in the business of making exams, not approving exams.
Any other questions? All right, Jerry, as usual, thank you for a job well done.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on to item F6, Executive Office Update. Call on Mary Winston.
Presiding Officer Roach and board members, to make this short and sweet, we survived the session. The electricians didn't have much on board or on deck. You can please go to our website, and we did list, we have Jeff Copas, one of our GR superstars, who tracks all of these thousands of bills that are filed that could possibly relate to the different industries that we regulate. And then he culminates them down and he titrates them down to what actually ended up in the session and what actually took effect and the days of which that'll take effect. And the two bills that he has noted on our the front of our webpage related to the 8A session, and we have, of course, a big box that you can click on, relate to residential construction, residential wiremen, and certain requirements for residential construction. He has also the dates that these things take effect, and we'll find out more information as that goes on. But other than that, as far as TDLR and what's going on and how we are handling what we're talking about before, which we'll hear more from Doug Jennings in his next presentation. And of course, Jerry's always on top of things. That's really all we have. We did not move into the special session, and we know there may be more special sessions to come, but TDLR, business, and all of the licensees and programs, none of that really falls directly into that. So we were able to get our work done in the session. Now we have bill implementation that will take effect and we can move on. And Doug, I think, wants to add something to that.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mary. Again, Doug Jennings, Assistant General Counsel for the department. I just wanted to update you. Mary briefly mentioned it relating to the requirements for residential wiremen. House Bill 1391, which was authored by Representative Schaefer, deals with I was going to mention this when we get to the part about our next advisory board meetings, but we are going to be asking you to meet at least a couple of times before the end of the year, because what House Bill 1391 does is it requires TDLR and our advisory board, you, and some other folks to get together and work on developing a curriculum for Texas high schools and institutions of higher education to create a curriculum for a course or a series of courses that when the student finishes the course, they become eligible to take the examination to become a residential wireman. And so it's going to fall upon us. The plumbing board did something similar a couple of years ago where their board got together, developed curriculum, and then that curriculum gets implemented in the high schools and colleges. But that's going to be our big ask, our big
Yes.
legislative ask for this year. And we'll get together a couple of times. And we will keep you apprised and make you heavily involved in the process. So that's all I wanted to mention,
Yes.
Mary.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. That is to come, and that bill allowed an either-or situation where there's so many hours that are gotten by the master or this educational piece. And so our advisory board will be front and center in assisting with that process of developing. I think Jerry just said it best. We do develop tests. And so this will be developing a curriculum. And the advisory board, I don't want to bog you down because we do have business to attend to today. But in the future, as Doug says, we will be calling on the advisory board members to come and be a part of this process for development of that program.
Great. I guess the governor signed the bill.
We are moving forward.
All right. Very good. Any questions, guys? All right, then we'll move on to item G. Discussion and possible recommendation on the proposed amendments to an existing Rule 16 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 73, Paragraph 73.100 regarding the electricians program. And I'll turn it over to Doug Jennings.
All right, thank you very much, Presiding Officer Roach. Again, Doug Jennings, Assistant General Counsel. You'll hear me say that every time because I'm required to. What you will see here is the proposed rule. You'll recall that in our last meeting, you approved this language to be published as a proposed rule in the Texas Register. That has happened. There was a 30-day public comment period. We received several comments that we have included in your materials. You'll see that most are neutral or not on topic. There's one that is in support. After reviewing the comments, we have concluded that no further change needs to be made. You may feel differently, but that is our conclusion. So what I would like to ask you to do today is to recommend adoption of this rule as it was published, as it appears before you, to our commission. Our commission will then make a vote on whether or not to adopt it. Ultimately, you'll see we are trying to make the 2023 NEC effective, as you'll see in the underlined language, on September 1st of this year. Happy to answer any questions. If they're of a technical nature, I will call on Jerry.
Any questions from the board members? There being none, then I will ask for a motion to approve recommendation.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion.
I'm sorry,
Marcus
who was
Lundergreen.
that?
Mark Matheny.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Marcus Lundergreen, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Anna, if you'll call the roll.
Yes, sir. Marcus Lundergreen,
Aye.
John Sparrow,
Aye.
Troy Webb,
Aye.
Christopher Bass,
Aye.
Mark Matheny,
Aye.
Lydell Toy,
Aye.
and Presiding Officer Mark Roach.
Aye.
Motion passes, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks, Doug. Item H on the agenda, recommendation for agenda items for the next board meeting. And I think Marion has already given us our homework, Mary and Doug. So.
Yes, Mary is giving the homework, but Doug will be leading that charge. So, as well as we have several members of staff that, we have E&E and they need to help develop that curriculum. So that's coming up. Doug, I don't know that you have anything pressing that we need to set a date yet on because we need to contact them moving forward for this other piece.
Right, we are working diligently in the background to get in touch with contacts at Texas State Technical College, the TEA, and other organizations, and even the plumbing board to talk about their success in the last legislative session. We're going to get those resources together and and make a game plan, and then we will start asking you. Like I said, I anticipate this board meeting at least twice. There may be room for, depending on how things go, 3 meetings. But fortunately, since we're virtual, that won't involve a lot of travel. But we will be calling on you pretty intensely over the next several months, and we will be in touch shortly to let you know what those potential dates are going to be.
I've got a question. So the involvement of the board members, singularly or 2 or 3, being a part of this process, are we needing any of that? Or do we need a workshop meeting of the board in total? Or
What I anticipate, Chairman Roach, is that we will have a full meeting of the advisory board, and I will probably ask you to appoint a work group to work on help us work on the curriculum in the interim. But since that wasn't on the agenda for this time, and we have a little bit of time to implement this, just to give you an idea, we are planning on publishing. We are planning on having rules to publish by February. I said September, which is not a real month. February 1st of 2024. So we still have a little bit of time left to develop this.
All right. Yeah, good heads up to the board. All right. Anything else on that item? Anybody got any questions?
Can we add this to the next agenda so we can keep it topic?
Certainly will.
Okay. Anyone else? I think it's great moving forward. All right then. Thank you very much, Mary. And then a discussion of a date, time, and location. I guess you guys, Mary and Anna, y'all will get together with us Tuesday.
Yes, Anna will poll the board.
All right. Is there anything else for the good of the advisory board? With that said, then let me see. I don't need to call for a motion and second to adjourn. Okay.
No, sir.
All right. Thank all of you very much for your time, for everything that y'all do for our industry. With that, I'll call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
All right.